Hello and welcome back to episode 51 of my informative playthrough of Pathfinder Kingmaker. And this video is going to be spent almost entirely in the capital, I believe, because we've got some rank ups. Basically, our main one is that we want to support our regent to rank up here, community to rank 2. That means we've got everything but divine up to 2, which is pretty good. So we're going to stick Octavia in there. But while that happens, we're able to do some other things. So we can get... we can either have Tristan rank up our capital to level 2, to a town. Or we can actually stick him in Bumper Harvest, which is a slightly longer, slightly more paying out option here. And I'd quite like to take the opportunity to use this and then next point to use to level up the city, because this takes a slightly longer length of time. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and stick. And we could use Heron, but these are too long. So we're just going to go ahead and start this here and hope nothing too bad happens as it clocks over into the new month. There we go. So Octavia ranked up to 2. Triumph for Tristan with that Bumper Harvest. That's really nice. So loyalty plus, these plus 5s are just, great if you can get them. And then we've got here, letter from Magar Van. So that's the neighboring land to the east. We've got some opportunities, Enchanted Wind, and in the name of the law, there's just regular opportunities. And we've got another problem, a letter from Brevoy. So before we do anything, we're going to go into the throne room. So Casil has brought us, because if you remember in the previous video, we basically asked Oleg who he'd rather serve and made a push for incorporating his trading post into our lands. So Lady Jumandi wasn't pleased by your request. Here we go. You chose to peacefully convince Jumandi to pass the post into your jurisdiction. Of course, they take these matters very seriously. However, Casil, very nicely of him, was able to convince to convey our position and clear the air. And the main thing is we need to build a road or repair the road ourselves with no help from the Eldori. So anyway, we get 2 choices here. We can build like a fake road, basically, the ghost road, or we can actually repair it. And this is quite an important choice because this will affect how you are seen, how your relationship with the Eldori goes. So I'm going to pick the truthful and I think good option that we're going to repair this ourselves. There we go. And this will increase trade and it should increase profit. Next, we have a letter from Magar Van, which we can see here. Most Honourable Baroness Alice. This is Magar Van, the ruler of the neighbouring city of Vanhold, writing. And he wants us to visit, which we're going to do. And he also wants us to consider building a trade route between Vanhold to the east and Strike Hills, which is our barony. Anyway, that's very nice of him. So that's going to be a new event, which we can use. And of course Lindsay, hello Lindsay. So we get a letter from Svetlana Levson about Old Bokken. So this is, having given him all 3 tomes, this is now the next part of Bokken's quest. So we're going to hit end dialogue there. And we can just have a little look. We should have a letter here, or so this is the Eldori letter, which we can see here. I'm not going to read it all out, but the basically saying that the road would be compensation enough. Until the repairs are finished, the trading post stays under Restov's protection. And this is the one from Svetlana here. And Bokken is losing his mind. Spends all day and night stooped over his cauldron. Looks about to lash out at anyone. So we're going to have to pay another trip north at some point. There we go. And now We can bring up our management screen again because nothing else. Oops. So these are just resolving these sort of stuff. We get a small boost for having been to the throne room for those two, for both the letter from Brevoy and the letter from Magar Van. Now you can see nothing has reached level 40 yet, so we've got nothing new to rank up. But we are sitting on some things, and we've got some new events, which I looked at just before, and we've got some new projects. So we can't set up the trade agreement yet because that requires our treasurer, who is currently restoring the Bronze Shield Road. We can set somebody to repair the road to Oleg's, but we just want to see these two here who can solve these. So we can stick Tristan in there. He's got a high chance of success, DC 13. And here, hopefully, we can stick Harem in. And we're actually going to burn a crisis point there, because what I really want is more divine. There we go. We'll start that event. And I believe we can stick Octavia in here to level up the capital. So that's another 100 build points. There we go. And since we want a little bit more divine, we're pushing for that. We are going to build a monument. A lot of BP, but the monument is community and loyalty, but it synergizes with the shrine. Here, I believe that's actually no, that doesn't provide any. Oh yeah, +1 divine when adjacent to a monument. That's what I was looking for. Right. But hopefully, this next tranche of events that come in will start popping these three over into 40, giving the option to rank up to rank 3, which is what I want. But we've got a bit of time, basically, and there's a few things we want to visit in the town. And I figured now would be a good time to go through one of the NPC dialogues, which I haven't done for a while. So I figured we'd talk to one of our new NPCs, which is Jubilost, who we recruited on our way to solve troll trouble this chapter. So let's just say hi. And he's writing down in his notebook because he is a famous gnome reporter / writer / explorer / cartographer / alchemist. Anyway, Jubilost, what are you jotting down in your notebook all the time? And everything, basically. Notes on adventures, good ideas, all the thoughts a gnome brain produces. And hoping to use them in his article. But really, we're just interested in a little bit of his background. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Jubilost. And yes, I suppose I can give you an interview free of charge, of course. So yeah, so I guess an inadvertent joke, since these dialogues with the NPCs are, of the lore dump interview type, and it does feel like we are interviewing them. We just reel off a list of questions and listen to their reply. It's you either, I don't know if there's anybody who really likes this form of interaction, but you either find it fine or you just find it a bit awkward. Anyway, where are you from, Jubilost? And all of Galarian. Okay. But he does in fact have a home, and he considers Absalom not his home but headquarters. And if we push just a little bit more, he talks even more. Been all the way to Tanzia. My pronunciation of pseudo-fake Chinese words in Galarian Pathfinder setting is terrible. Anyway, he's seen a lot. Every country in Avestan, which is where we are, and Garund, which is across the inner sea. So the inner sea with Absalom in the middle to the south. Anyway, we can push like a little bit more, and yeah, and he gets a bit riled up. You risk crossing that line. Do you think I haven't mentioned my birthplace because of my forgetfulness? I was born in Taldor, if you must know. So there we go. This was a great and ancient empire, which is now in considerable decay after then they had these ancient armies of exploration across the whole of Golarion, and they fought back the whispering tyrant. Now Taldor is a stunted remnant of its glory. But yes, the Empire is in decline nowadays, but still cherishes the illusion of its past glory. It is a country torn by prejudice. In Taldor, my mind was trapped in a cage of restrictions, birthright, poverty, and their beggars-be-damned attitude. I left the country as soon as I understood it. So, yeah, and this again comes down to the I guess the debate, although there's no real answers. Like, does Jubilost really fit his alignment, or is he more, leaning towards the good side? If there was a space between neutral and good, he might slot into that, because he dislikes, he finds all these sort of things very distasteful. So yes, whereas someone who is neutral might just go, who cares? And yes, my first article in The Independence was about Taldor. The magazine was always closed as a result of the scandal that followed, and it would have closed were it not for crowds of my supporters marching in protest under the windows of the publishing house, making its editors change their mind. So, of course, he's never shy of tweaking the nose of those in charge, including us. You'll have noticed he's not particularly polite to Alice, even though he is part of her baronial court. Anyway, tell us about your travels, Jubilost. I've written... this is quite good, because he's like, just read my books. Like, I'm not telling you. Yeah. I haven't the slightest desire to retell them all to you right now. If you wish to learn about foreign lands, pick up any issue of The Independent and read all you like. This is a bit of a no shit Sherlock option. So you write books and magazine articles? Yes. And then he calls us stupid. So this is just reiterating his various things. So his alchemical works for National Alchemy, his Traveller's Essays, his The Independence, his sort of reviewing and rating of different government systems on Golarion, and his Atlas of Avestan. This is our region, and also his culinary almanacs, which we've come across a few and immediately sold. So yes, and I'd forgotten about this one, but this is really good. Some have tried to blame me for a sleazy romance novel called The Five Sins of Sarenrae. I have no idea on who spread these crazy rumors. It's a grammatical. Presumably it should be no idea of who spread these crazy rumors. But if you like such frivolity, I've been informed that the novel sequel, The Sixth Sin, was recently published. So I'm assuming that's implication that he did write it, but he claims no responsibility. But the fact that he's sort of shilling its sequel there is implies that in his spare time he writes some novels under sleazy romance novels under a pseudonym. Yes. Anyway, you wear glasses. Why won't you ask some cleric to heal your eyesight? And yes, he basically says, figure it out yourself. And then he says, in his own way, that he's going to enlighten us. And the idea is that, he could. There's no reason why he couldn't. He could afford it, because he's quite wealthy due to his publications. And he has so many admirers that somebody would probably do it for free. However, he considers that his articles are not written for the wealthy. His articles are written for minor nobility, traders, and workers. So I guess middle classes and lower classes, rather than for the high nobility. And this is because often they are satirizing the rich and powerful. But these people usually don't have enough money to afford an expensive cleric. And so he kind of implies that his wearing glasses brings him closer to his audience and those who can't afford to have their eyes fixed. When I first read this, I was a bit left field, because I thought he was just going to say that he wore glasses because he thought they made him look smarter and like a scholar should. But yes, but he does. I mean, he does imply my spectacles are part of my image. But yeah, he seems to think that wearing glasses brings him closer to the people. But the fact that he could get them fixed, yeah, I'll leave that up to the listener and the reader to make their own judgment as to whether his reasoning is actually sound there. And yes, so thanks, Jubilost. We're going to ask something else. So, and okay, so this is really quite interesting because we've had these encounters with the Fae in various places, because we know from, say, like from the book in the Lonely Tomb, that the Stolen Lands is implied to be closer to the First World than many other places. Like the veil between worlds is weak. So this is quite interesting, this stuff that he will tell us about gnomes. And yes. Anyway, history lessons. How did gnomes appear on Golarion? And so yeah, they came here in ancient times from the First World. You do know what the First World is, right? If you don't, ask me about it sometimes. I used to lecture on it at a couple of institutes. According to the understanding I've accumulated, the gnomes were an immortal race until some of our especially insightful ancestors came up with a brilliant idea. They decided it would be fun to learn about it, learn how it feels to be mortal. I would like very much to meet those gnomes. I wouldn't even kick them. I'd just look in their eyes without a single word. Too bad they're all long dead by now. As everyone knows, a stupid enough idea can be extremely contagious, so the gnomes caught this infection, all of them, without a hope of a cure. So they found a way to Golarion and decided to settle here. And you'll never believe it, they got just what they wanted. They severed their link with the First World. They gained mortality, the bleaching, and a heap of local diseases that have been keeping our race on the verge of extinction ever since. So, yes, this is basically the history of the gnomes. They were a race in the First World with everything that comes with that. But for some reason, unknown to everyone, but of particular interest to Jubilost, because this is you can sort of tell from the writing that he finds this both incomprehensible and also very frustrating to know that all the sort of suffering, or much of the suffering which gnomes suffer from, is badly explained, but much of the suffering in their lives comes from this incomprehensible decision to leave the First World and settle in Golarion, including the bleaching here, which is the decolorization of gnomes when they fail to experience new sensory stimuli and experiences. They become jaded and infected with a sort of spiritual ennui, which means they just fade away and die from this bleaching. So do gnomes live long? Yes. If it were not for the bleaching. And yeah, gnomes must have constantly new experience. If a gnome gets into a rut, so to speak, he bleaches. We start to lose colour, literally. Our skin and hair become pale, and the worst thing is our soul loses colour too. If the process continues unchecked, the gnome dies. History recalls only a few cases where gnomes actually died of old age. Most of them perished either because of the bleaching, or in the middle of some crazy adventure they've joined just to stave it off. And I don't want to drop spoilers for Wrath of the Righteous, but it's really nice that in Wrath of the Righteous you get a bit more development about this. It's picked up in Wrath of the Righteous. So if you're interested in the bleaching, you get some experience of that in Wrath of the Righteous. So do you travel so far as a way to fend off the bleaching, Jubilost? And this is he's become a bit maudlin. You see, I enjoy being alive. I like to eat pancakes in the morning. I like to write articles for magazines. I like it when I leave the publishing house in Absalom and a crowd of fans immediately mob me. So I don't intend to die at the peak of my life because of some stupid ancient curse. But on top of that, he doesn't do this just to fend off the bleaching. That's not his sole purpose. He finds that they work well together. He does something he likes, provides him with new experiences, which staves off the bleaching as a bonus. And yes, sooner or later I'll bleach and die like any other gnome, but the name of the famous Jubilost Narthropple will live through the ages. So he wants to make a long-lasting contribution to society, effectively. And this is again why perhaps you might question his alignment, that he's driven not purely through his own desires, but through a desire to make a wider contribution, which can still be selfish, but implies that he doesn't just want praise and adoration to stave off the bleaching. He actually wants to contribute socially. Anyway, let's change the world. Let's change the subject. I'd like to know more about the first world. And yes, this is quite relevant. And for Alice, Fey bloodline sorceress, one might expect she was very interested in the first world, because that's where she derives her magic from. Is her first world heritage. Anyway, what's it like? It's huge, wild, extremely unfriendly. Nothing remains constant. Everything changes. It is a realm of a realm of chaos, but not as in like a chaotic maelstrom, but a very mutable and changeable world. So yes, he's in fact Jubilost says it, but it'd be wrong to think of the first world as a plane of total destruction. Creation is just as important there. The desert springs alive into forests, and when the hurricanes subside, animals emerge from hiding, huge, wild, and untamed as the world itself. The first world epitomizes life in its original chaotic meaning. And this is a theory that the first world was a sort of prototype, in which the gods practiced creation and destruction before they made something a bit more substantial and a bit more fixed in the form of Golarion. And yes, some say the inhabitants of the first world still hold a grudge against the gods for this, for their abandonment to something they considered better. Anyway, how do we get there? Not for no particular reason. Portals, yeah. In excess of several thousand gold coins. We're not short on gold, so should we want to? Not that the game is going to provide us with an opportunity just to conjure up a portal to the first world, but yes. And the other thing here, if we judge from everything we've read and everything we've experienced, such as the book, the notes in the Lonely Tomb, the presence of the nymph, all the sort of strange goings on and the curses and everything strange to do with the first world in the Stolen Lands, we might imagine that this is one of these places where spontaneous portals to the first world can open, where the boundary between the two worlds has grown thin. And yes, spontaneous portals are rather dangerous. You never know what's lurking on the other side, and we will learn that a little bit more about that in the next couple of videos. Only desperate adventurers and madmen use them, and of course romantic suicidal idiots who think that good common sense is too boring. So what about sentient beings in the first world? Yes, and of course the Fae, and all the various myriad Fae, from things like mites to dryads and bigger. We met a Dwemer cat, so yeah. Also, we've met the satyr and the what's she, a dryad? Yeah. Just different names for different Fae. And this is, I guess, important for the capricious nature of the Fae. I think I've talked about this before, but the idea that if a Fae dies, their soul just reincarnates in another body, and so death becomes something of a prank to play on people, because it's funny if you kill someone and they reappear lacking all their powers, but of course they're still alive. Whereas, on Golarion, dead is basically dead unless somebody resurrects you. So for instance, Fae enjoy mischief and tricks that can easily end in someone's death. The Fae think it's just funny, and anyone from another world who falls victim to such tricks doesn't end up having much say at all. So what about rulers in the first world? Oh, and so what you're getting through this is that Jubilost is mournful, even bitter about this event in the Gnomes, in the history of the Gnomes. He considers it to have been a tragic and foolish mistake, and that plays into his story arc. So his knowledge of the first world and his study of it is relevant to Jubilost as a character going forward. Anyway, who rules the first world? It's commonly assumed that the eldest rule it. They're overseers, but more just a glorified version of Fey Lords. Power attracts pompous blockheads in every world. We're just going to stay silent here. Yes. And he is quite nice because he then says that such an issue is not an issue that we suffer from. Whereas we could have jumped in with those sort of self-righteous answers. Anyway, the eldest possessed, so we can just bring this up. Yeah, they've got the power to maintain areas of the first world in a more or less constant state. That's why the Fae treat them as demigods and offer them prayers. And yes, so you know a lot about the first world, Jubilost. Have you ever been there? He considers it unfortunate that he hasn't, and his studies are most limited. Confused statements of witnesses, scribbles in their diaries, and the remains of some unfortunate who periodically fall out of spontaneous portals. So yes, and he'd very much like to go, and he'd very much like to make decent, high-quality notes rather than rambling rubbish. And yes. Naturally, the main concern of my expedition would be the safety of its leader, namely me. It would be extremely foolish to go that far and see that much, only to lose the chance to tell anyone about it. So, you must know a lot about the first one. We've kind of already covered this, and the answer is basically yes. It just loops us back to the first dialogue. But tell us, Jubilost, for no particular reason, why have you studied the first world so thoroughly? And yes, I guess that there's foreshadowing here. I told you already, I like to be alive. I assure you, other gnomes share the same attitude. Between the bleaching, disease, and old age, we have a lot to yearn for. But the ancient gnomes for some reason decided that mortality, the bleaching, and all the diseases of Galarian are preferable to the immortality of the first world. I can't do anything to change that, but I can do something with my own life. I want to find a way back to the first world for all the gnomes of Galarian. So again, think about his alignments. Yeah, and that seems like an incredibly high goal to aim for. That's not a small ask. It's a very big one. Big project. And yeah, but the gnomes since the gnomes have severed their connection, they can't just march back in. They'd just be like if a load of humans marched in. So he wants to solve this problem, and I intend to find out what the solution is. And anyway, we can tell him it's not. I'll save this. It's quite funny, and we can tell him to go away, or we can say thanks and bye. Okay. So before we head out, or before I end this video, I'm going to just head out, and we're going to round up a couple of quests. I.e., we're going to talk to Valerie, and we're going to talk to Jaethal to finish off their two quests before we head out into the wilderness again to do a bit more questing and to visit some regions, but mostly to go complete Kanara and Kaliki's quest, which is I feel we're high enough level now to do that. I've been holding off it as long as possible, but no longer. And also it's the first of the month, so it's a good time to go do adventuring. Greetings, Your Grace. Greetings. Hello. Right. Chat to Valerie. And, yeah. Basically, all we need to do is ask her how she feels and about her wound. And, please don't worry about such trifles. I will visit a priest or an alchemist when time permits. As for how I feel, I admit I expected no other outcome from this duel. As I've always said, Shellen's paladins are pompous dolts, capable of little beyond admiring useless garbage and pining after poetry. I should thank you, Alice. It's important to me that you are at my side. Now I'm sure I'm finally free of the Order of the Eternal Rose and ready to devote all my time and efforts to our mission. And that's it. She's pleased, and so are we, actually, because that was a tough fight. Anyway, we gain a bit of experience. It's quite nice. And again, we can ask how the wound is, but that just loops back round. It says it's fine. Okay. And let us come down and visit Jaethal here. Just have a look. Seems that Enneo disappeared, leaving his more cumbersome belongings behind. So, hi, Jaethal. He's fled, as I expected. So, yes. Those children in the woods could hardly be expected to kill us. Why the performance? There must be something. And she freezes, pulls a note from Enneo's wares, glances at it and silently hands it to you. There's only one phrase on the note. No way out. And the image of a spiral comet in place of the signature. Do you know the symbol? I know the symbol. But do you know it, Alice? Yeah, of course. The spiral comet is a symbol of Pharasma. Long ago, my goddess managed to break free from the grip of the Lady of Graves. Ever since, she treats Urgathoa's very existence as a personal affront. The half-blood must be a particularly zealous follower of Pharasma. He's already tried to kill me twice. Well, we'll see whether that bears out in the future. But yes, one could theorize that with the knowledge we have already, rather than sharing knowledge of what will happen, that followers of Pharasma, with their very, very strong dislike of the undead, would be keen to banish Jaethal, to return her to Pharasma's boneyard, rather than let her carry on. Anyway, I'm going to pick this last one. We can't leave things as we stand. We must find Enneo as soon as possible. I don't see any point to that lawful neutral one, or to saying we have no quarrel, because we're kind of hoping we can get Jaethal to be a bit nicer, even if she is the inquisitor of an evil goddess resurrected by her. Anyway, we must find Enneo as soon as possible, and yeah, hunt that half-blood even beyond death if needed. And we get considerable experience, yeah. And basically, Jaethal goes off on her own to track them down. There we go, and we can see. Yeah, that's all it says. But there is one other thing I forgot to mention about Jaethal when we did her quest there. Where is she? Where have you gone? Yeah. I hope it shows up. Here? Yes. So special abilities. Yeah. So that's our spells here. So in her special abilities, she gets Animate Dead, and she can Animate Dead 3 times a day. It's really nice. So basically gives you 3 Animate Dead summons, which that's very powerful. Animate Dead is a really powerful spell. It's the staple of higher difficulties at higher levels, being able to throw out disposable summons. If you played Wrath of the Righteous without, because I normally in contrast to this, I normally play Wrath of the Righteous without any animal companion classes, because I think it makes for a much different experience. But I think animal companions are tradition in Kingmaker, which is why I brought along the druid. But if you're playing without animal companions, you'll probably find you're throwing out a lot of summons to choke up stuff. And if you, I have a video on my channel of fighting an enemy called the Vescoval Queen. I think I cast Animate Dead about 14 times during that encounter on unfair. Because they just mob, allowing you to do something. Because even if something's got 5 attacks a round, if you summon 5 undead, you've tied them up for an entire round while they smash through your skeletons, and you can keep churning them out. Anyway, that's enough about that. Animate Dead is a great spell, and so that really boosts Jaethal's utility if you want to have her around. Yes. Anyway, I think that's enough for this video. I'm going to call it quits here. And I'll pick up in the next video where we head off to go complete Kanara and Kaliki's quest here, companion quest, Sorrowflow. There we go, travel to the Taldan ruins. So, see you in the next video.